Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to On That Note on Amazon Live. I am your host, Ellie Rivers, and I am coming to you live from Volatility Media Studios in Hollywood. As a musician myself, I am thrilled to have the honor to be one of the first music talk shows on Amazon Live. One of my favorite things to do is to learn about stories of music legends. And what better way to hear the stories than from someone who was in the room when the action was happening. On my show, On That Note on EverTalk TV, I had the privilege of interviewing the legendary Al Schmidt about his book, On the Record, The Magic Behind the Music. With over 20 Grammys, he is one of the most respected audio engineers and record producers of all time. His client list includes Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra, Toto, Quincy Jones, and that is just a few. This book, which is linked below, is jam-packed with Hollywood magic moments. Welcome to On That Note. My next guest is an audio engineer and a music producer with over 20 Grammys to his name. He's worked with Paul McCartney, Barbra Streisand, Bob Dylan, just to name a few. He's also the only audio engineer with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I would like to welcome my next guest, Al Schmidt.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
Happy
for
to be
being
here.
So I like to start out with my guests by asking how you started your musical journey. Where did it start for you?
I grew up in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And my uncle was a recording engineer, had his own studio in New York City. So on weekends, I would get on the subway and go over to Manhattan, spend the weekend with him at the studio, stay over at his apartment and all, and watch him record and getting to meet people. And that's what started.
What was that like being a little kid? Because I didn't know what a recording engineer or
it was
what a
amazing
studio was. I was
being
really
a little
20.
kid. We were really poor, and he was doing really well. And he was my father's brother and also my godfather. So he didn't have any children, so he took me like I was his child. And he took me to all the fights at Madison Square Garden, the hockey games, everybody. And he knew everybody. He did the first Frank Sinatra record ever done.
Wow.
He did a very famous record, Benny Goodman, Big Sing, 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 which was a masterpiece. It was great. I would go and I'd meet Bing Crosby one day, and the Andrews Sisters another day, and Art Tatum, a great piano player, would come down and take my hand and show me little boogie-woogie licks on the piano.
That was so amazing.
So it was fun for me. I just always wanted to do it. I think if I hadn't done that, I probably would have been a novel writer.
Oh, wow.
Like Elmore James.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you were working with him, and then
I would do clean patch cords and set up chairs and watch him record, and just help out.
So that was your training? Is that the training?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay.
And then I went in the Navy when I was 17. I enlisted on my birthday and went in the Navy, and I got out when I was 19. And he had a dear friend that had a studio called Apex Recording. And they were recording everybody, and they were looking for an apprentice. So my uncle called me and asked if I was interested in doing it. I said, absolutely. And I went, and that was it. That was the start.
That was amazing. And that was in New York?
In New York City.
In New York. So when did you make the move from, because I know there's a lot of talk between New York, LA, and the different genres. When did you decide to make the move to
I made
Los
the move
Angeles?
in 1958. I moved out here, same year the Dodgers came. I didn't want to miss a game. But I was working with a guy in New York who owned World Pacific Jazz, and we were recording all these jazz artists. And he said, why don't you come to California, and then I'll have to come to New York to work with you. And we were kidding. And I said, well, give me a job and I'll show up. 3 weeks later, he called me on the phone. He said, I got you a job out here. They know you work. They want you. So pack up and bring the family.
So pack up and you're coming.
And I packed up and moved my 3 kids and my wife. And
my goodness. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So speaking of all the work you've been doing, you've worked with some legends, absolute legends.
Yeah, it's just about everybody.
Just about everybody.
There isn't anybody I haven't worked with that I wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah, the only one maybe would be Sade. I've always wanted to do a record with her.
All right, well, it's on the record now.
Yeah.
We'll send it to her.
I put it out there before.
Okay.
But Sinatra, everybody, you know.
Wow. So you were really close with the soul singer Sam Cooke. What was it like working with him?
He was a dear friend. He was so much fun to work with. He was great. We were doing an album at the Copacabana in New York, a live album. And we were in New York a couple of weeks before to get everything ready and do all that. And I stayed at a hotel across the street from his hotel. And I would go over every day and we'd go over stuff and everything. And one day I walk in and he's sitting with Cassius Clay back then.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So he was helping Muhammad Ali, who was going to sing on Columbia Records. I think the song was Stand By Your Man. And he was helping him, his phrasing and everything else.
Wow.
So I spent the afternoon on the floor most of the time because they were so irreverent and so much fun. I mean, they were just kicking back and forth. And yeah, it was a great experience.
That is...
Wonderful evening or late afternoon.
That's amazing. I mean, if you could go back, I would love to get phrasing help from Sam Cooke.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
That would be lovely. So you've also worked with one of my absolute favorites, Barbra Streisand.
Right.
Can you tell us any fun stories about her?
Well, I did The Way We Were album with her. That was the first time I worked with her. I worked with her again with David Foster on Back to Broadway. And she came in one day and said, "Oh, I don't think I can sing. I got a bad throat." And she said, "But I'll run it down." And she ran it down with the orchestra one time. Mm-hmm. And then she said, "Well, let me do one more." And she did one more, and she just killed it. You know, it was just... And I looked at David, he looked at me. It was like, you know, God gave her a kiss right here on the... She was amazing. What a great singer. And then I did an album with her with Diana Krall that Diana produced. And I've done 12 records with Diana. She's one of my all-time favorites. And that was a lot of fun, you know. It was great seeing these two great singers working together and Diana producing. Yeah, it was cool.
That's awesome.
There's no salacious stories. Darn.
Darn it. No, she's an angel. She couldn't have any stories.
Yeah, no, she did have a dog. She actually had the dog cloned. This is a year and a half ago. But she had the dog, and everybody would carry the dog. And I at one point, I said, "Barbra, can that dog walk?"
Could it? Maybe it couldn't.
Yeah, it could.
Oh, it could.
Definitely could. But everybody, she had, you know, a housemaid that took care of it and died, you know. So she was interesting.
That is.
And she's a perfectionist.
I can imagine.
Total.
As one perfectionist, I can usually spot another perfectionist. Oh, cool. And it shows up in her work. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
amazing. Tell
me a little bit about audio engineering. Some people don't really know exactly what that entails. What would your day-to-day look like? And I know through the decades it's shifted.
It's changed quite a bit, yeah, because I was an engineer for a while, then I was a producer for a while, then I was a producer-engineer for a while. I did, you know, co-produced On the Beach with Neil Young and Late for the Sky with Jackson Browne. So, and then I slowly morphed into just engineering again, and that's what I've been doing probably the last 12, 20 years maybe. Mm-hmm. And it's my first love, and that's what I like to do, and so I'm happy doing that.
And you have so much, not control, but you. I feel like the engineers sometimes, they can create the sound. I mean, you can do so much just with some switches. And how do you decide what mic Barbra Streisand's going to use versus?
Yeah, well, she has a special mic that she uses all the time, and we have to rent that mic, and at one point she tried to buy it, and the guy wouldn't sell it.
There's only one?
This one's particular
she
one.
wants the one.
It's a special mic. It was in a U49, and it was a great mic on her voice.
Do you know if she still uses it to this day?
What's that?
Do you know if she still uses it to this
Yeah,
day?
she still uses it, yeah.
Wow.
The last time I worked with her, she wanted it. She still rents it from this guy. On Diana, we use Frank Sinatra's mic, same mic that Frank used. Yeah, and that's a great microphone.
If the
I use
mics
that a
could
lot.
talk.
That's my go-to microphone.
Which one is
for
it?
vocals? It's a U47,
Okay.
and yeah, it was the one that all those great albums he did. That's the mic he sang on.
That's amazing.
And when you show people or tell people, this is the mic Frank used, and this is the stool that he sat on, or this is Nat Cole's piano, it's like people just,
It's magic.
yeah, it is.
That's fully magic.
Yeah. And for some reason, it seems to bring everybody's game up. You know, when they walk down the hall and they see Sinatra and Dean Martin and Judy Garland, and, you know, it just kind of gives everybody a little bit of a boost.
Speaking of magic, your new book on the record, The Magic Behind the Music. Everybody should read it.
Yes.
How do you, because I know exactly what you're talking about, how do you capture that magic? How do you
Well,
even know it's there? Like, what is that brings them up?
Well, the way I work is in capturing sound. I go in the room with the musicians. I'm always there the first time they run it down, so I hear what's going on in the room. Then I go inside and try to capture what I heard out there.
Ooh.
And, yeah, and if I'm not happy, I change microphones or change position of microphones, and until I get what I want. So it just takes concentration, really, and it's not nuclear science. You know, it's a microphone and a guitar, or a few microphones and drums.
I don't know. The stuff you've done is pretty magical, it seems.
Yeah, I've done some really great things, and some records, and I like the Unforgettable record with Natalie Cole. That's one of my favorites. Breezing with George Benson is another one. The record I did with Paul McCartney is another one. That was a joy. We did some of it in L.A., some of it in New York, and some of it in London at Abbey Road, where the Beatles did all their things. So he told a lot of Beatles stories. Like, they wouldn't let him in the front door; they had to come around the back because they looked shabby and everything, and they just didn't want that kind of.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Was that before or after they were?
That was before. That was when it was starting.
If
that
they
was probably
only knew.
Doing the first, yeah, of course. And Paul is probably the nicest person I've ever worked with. There isn't
I love
anybody
hearing
nicer
that.
in the business. He's a sweetheart. He's a great guy, and he's always doing videos and sending them to me when I'm getting awards.
Oh, that's so
Oh
fun.
yeah, he's a great guy.
That's fun. And he wrote the foreword in your
He
book.
wrote
so
the forward
everybody
in the
can
book, and
see some of
yeah.
his words.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's very cool. So when you're recording these days versus back when you first started,
Oh.
do you like it better now? Do you like it better before? Do you feel like the sound, analog versus digital, has changed the way that you're able to capture the music?
I like the digital sound now that they've been able to go up in quality, and so I record everything at 192, mix everything at 192. It's I don't know if it's any more fun. It's a lot more difficult today. Back then,
Really?
you would set the musicians up and singers or whatever, and everybody was in the same room. It was all done mono or two-track, and there was no editing. Some editing on tape, but there was no tuning.
So
Everybody,
you had to get it. It was more on the
everybody
musician.
sang in tune, you know, back then. Yeah, so, and what you heard coming out of the speakers is what the record was going to sound like. So that was great. Today, you'll hear parts of things, you know, a rhythm section, and then strings will be added, and then maybe trumpets and a big brass will be added. So you never know what the final result is going to be like until everybody's put their part on it. Anyway, it's a little more difficult. It takes a hell of a lot longer to make a record. Back then, we used to make a record in 2 days.
Yeah, I was reading your book
album.
that said it was, you'd have 3-hour sessions and record the song and send people on their way.
Yeah. Well, we record 4 songs in 3 hours mostly. When I did Ray Charles and Betty Carter, I think the whole thing was done in like 7-8 hours. Whole album. Yeah.
The album?
Yeah.
It's like it's basically a concert that you're
Like 12
capturing.
songs. Well, they were all in the room together. He was sitting at the piano and played. She stood next to him with her hand on his shoulder, and then we had the orchestra. Yeah, it was. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty
That's
exciting.
fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And he's cool, Ray.
He's cool.
Yeah, he was, unfortunately.
All right.
I did his last album, Genius Loves Company, and I think we won 5 Grammys on that album alone. The company.
How long did that one take to make?
That took a while because of all the people that were that were duets with him, tracking people down, schedules, and all that. So,
Tracking people down and then tracking them.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, similar to what we did with Sinatra on the duets album.
That's amazing. So you recorded one of my favorite songs, Africa,
Right.
and now it's a famous meme.
I know.
Dak
Is that
Shepard.
amazing?
Have you seen the Dak Shepard video where they went to Africa and they did a whole like home video, and it's to that song?
Oh, really? No.
It's so funny. You
Oh, I
should
have
watch
to see
it.
it. No, I haven't. I know we did. Rosanna was the first thing we did, and that was a smash. And then Africa, we did a couple days later, and that was a smash. I had a friend who he was a singer years ago and an actor in movies, and he always wanted to go to the Grammys. And he said, next time you think you got something, let me know. So I invited him to the session when we were doing Toto 4, and I said, we're going to the Grammys with this, and I took him as my guest. So
you knew.
and yeah, oh yeah.
What was that like? How did you know?
You just feel it, like unforgettable. You know it. Same thing with the Breezin' album with Benson. You just know it's something special. The vibe out there, and I get a little goosebumps.
Chills.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you ever gotten that and then you think it's a smash and then it doesn't, the charts don't do anything? Is there any song that we don't know about that we all need to listen to?
Well, I can't pick out one in particular, but there are quite a few where you think, wow, this is great. This is really going to happen. And it doesn't. And then there are songs where you think it's just like a throwaway. And I did a record with Connie Francis called My Happiness, which was a huge, huge hit. And the producer was there, and we did 2 songs, and then he left. So now the 3rd song we're going to do, David Rose was the conductor, was this song, My Happiness. And then she said, you think we could double the voice? And I said, yeah, it'll take a little while. I had to bring another machine in, tape machine, so we could play that back and record that and then her voice to another machine. And it was like #1 for 12 weeks or something. And the producer wasn't even there.
He wasn't even in the room.
Didn't show up.
Did you get a producer credit on that
No,
one?
I wish I did.
Oh,
No.
man.
No, he got it. No.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So it's been said that you have a hit record for every decade of your career.
Yeah, probably.
What do you attribute your success to?
Oh, God. I think the most important thing is how much I love what I do. You know, I lie to my wife every day when I tell her I'm going to work, because it's not work, and I love it so much, and I think that's it, the passion that I have for it, that I think that's one of the most important things.
Absolutely.
And, the ability to work with people and get the best out of them, that's another great thing, you know, to be able to help them when they need help.
Boost them up, know when to, when they need encouragement, when they need to be pushed
and
harder.
In fact, that I encourage other engineers and assistants. You know, I invite them in when I'm working and show them what I'm doing. So I don't have any secrets. I want everybody to be able to, you know, it's easy to do what I do. I don't use equalization at all. I use my microphones. So I learned what microphones gave me the best fidelity on certain instruments. And so
that's a lot to learn.
Yeah, well, when you're doing it from, you know, I've been doing it forever now.
Yes. So if you could pick one recording session that was your most memorable, which one would it be?
Probably Hatari with Henry Mancini. That was probably the most difficult record I ever made. That's the one with Baby Elephant Walk, and that was really hard because the sounds of Hatari were bass flutes. We had 5 percussionists with log bass and the big beans that were dried beans, the shakers. Shelly Mann playing kalimba, trombones, trumpets, French horns, woodwinds, calliope. I mean, it was, and everything was done at one time. There were no overdubbing back then. So that was probably the most difficult thing I ever did and the most memorable. And my first Grammy, so it was important.
So there it is. Yes, that's very important. And then 21 more followed.
Yeah, I have 23 actually.
You have 23?
Yeah, I have 20 Grammys, regular Grammys. I have 2 Latin Grammys, and then I have a Lifetime Achievement Grammy. So and then there's more coming up this year.
Amazing.
Yeah,
you just
I got to work a little bit on Paul McCartney's new album, so that was fun, and he could get nominated for some things.
Well, we will keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd like to end with a couple fast answer questions.
Okay.
Just say whatever comes to your mind, the first thing that comes to mind. Okay, what is your favorite song of all time?
Wow.
I knew this would be tough for you.
Boy, I don't have one favorite.
No?
No.
Okay, all right.
For all we know, maybe.
Okay, great. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Casablanca.
Yes. If you had to eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
If I
One food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One food for the rest of my life.
Wow. I know, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. Maybe pheasant.
We have not gotten that answer yet. We have not gotten that answer.
I had pheasant in Germany, and it just killed me. It was the best thing I've ever had in my life.
I've never had it before.
It's fun.
All right. Digital or analog?
Analog.
Analog, okay.
Yeah.
New York or LA?
I love New York City, but I love living in LA.
Perfect.
I did my time in New York, and and I love it.
Well, we're gonna keep you here. And on that note, I'd like to thank Al for joining us. Be sure to check out his new book, Al Schmidt on the Record, The Magic Behind the Music. I want to say a huge thank you to Amazon and also to Volatility Media and EverTalk TV for helping with the production and distribution of the show. It takes a village, and I'm so grateful to have such an amazing team. Don't forget to grab your copy of On the Record, The Magic Behind the Music in the link below. We'll see you next time.